We're given the first ranked demon lord in this chapter, and I'm so confused now on who that giant arm is. It's got to be someone of general like story importance, like maybe not like story specific, like this character's tied to the story, but I would assume in terms of the demon realm, if there's this giant arm demon like of that size, it's got to be at least of some significance just based off of pure like again the stature of this creature. But we're given this guy, and his design is really cool. It's one of those ones that's just very straightforward, doesn't have to really become like crazy different intricate to stand out. And I think the part of the thing that does it in such a strong way is when you have all these other demons that all have these different kind of, for the most part, very western and like weird like thematic style, because a lot of them don't look very Japanese for a Japanese manga. But this guy Tonjinshi, he looks really cool. I really like his tattoo system scheme, his like Oni mask. He just has like a very basic set of horns. And then again his sword, like his sword setup is really cool. It doesn't seem like he has anything again too like outwardly flashy at the moment. I'm guessing once we start to kind of really move with him, he'll probably have something badass like a buffed like double sword, like maybe he can fuse his two swords together. I'm kind of hoping just based off from what we see in this chapter, because he seems to have one of the like cool sheath draw styles that like quick EO. I think it's pronounced EI slash or whatever. I can't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he's got that. It would be really cool to see him do that with two swords, and kind of like maybe have something weird like that he's able to do because of his demon species. And that's something that again I'm looking forward to seeing from him of what exactly his specific thing is that he has at his position. Because I mean, I really like Mukurojima. He's my favorite in terms of general design out of the demon lords. But like obviously he's rank 2, so this guy is stronger than him, and he's going to be the one setting the final tone before going into the bit with Zudaroth. Unless there's something with Mukurojima where it's it's some form of like, oh, well, I'm what not without using my full power, I'm weaker than Tanjinshi, but when he uses full power, he's secretly actually stronger. Some Ulquiorra move, but outside of that, it was just really cool to see some characters just get a little bit of showtime on the screen, and we've seen more set into kind of like specific character fights, but here we got a team match, and we've had a little bit of that. Like we had Yoko fighting up against Gorgon before Kyoka showed up, but this was more of like an actual team bit. And she didn't really help the Concordia members really too much. I mean, she was already pretty beaten from the last fight, and then doing whatever happened in this one. But Akari's brother shows up once things are clearly not looking anywhere good for them, and just manages to get at least somewhat of a push on this dude. Oh, pause real fast. So Karuta, though, in the chapter, I like just the fact that even in a scenario where it's clear that he can't win, he's able to do at least a little bit, because it shows his character potential, but it also shows a bit of his opponent with Tanjinshi, of what kind of fighter he is, because he was very much fine with letting them do things like, okay, attempt that, and then we'll see if my sword technique can beat whatever it is you have planned. Because he's not. It's very clear first off that like he could just slash all these dudes down like immediately, but he's a little bit bored. Like he's saying, Zudaroth was lying to me. This isn't very fun. I mean, granted, he immediately runs into a bunch of fodder people compared to him. Like if Neon and Jack Joe were at full power, they would at least be able to do something. But we know that even with Bakiraku, like someone like Yoko stood no chance. So someone multiple ranks above him is going to be, an insurmountable opponent right now. And I like that she was willing to sacrifice herself in order to save anybody else that was there, do her job for the people that were lower ranked than her. But it was really cool when he was talking about running, and he's like, okay, cool, yeah, you run. I'll go after you. That might be a little bit more fun, and we'll see which is faster between your feet or my sword. I just thought that was a cool line. But I have that Mitagi. I like some of the different power styles that like sits outside of what you would generally expect. Like the fact that Mitagi has a sniper. It reminds me of like how you in Fairy Tail, like in the guild, you have like Bisca, so you have like for the most part wizards, and there's like some variants, but she just is a sniper. So it's a really cool and easy to use thing when it comes to redirecting a lot of the ideas of what you're going to get for weapons and powers for most characters. As well as it was really nice to see from his perspective of fighting somebody that was clearly like every move that he was about to do, you have to respond to it immediately, or else you run into a death scenario. Because like when Tanjinchi was doing one of his sword draws, it was really cool that when he's like, oh, Karuda's just hyping it up. He's like, is he planning to slice the entire city in half? You know, just maybe we'll see some crazy attacks in the next chapter from this guy, because again, he is the first rank of the Demon Lord, so he's got to be powerful in terms of like when he actually fights. Um, but when he before he pulls his sword out, you have Karuda just like rush in and go for like a foot stomp, just press into the sword, preventing it from drawing out. I wish we saw some cool like effect of it like not properly being drawn, and like some energy discharge comes out, maybe like destroys part of the area, so it just shows what happened. You know, it's slightly double-edged if the technique isn't completed. But he's just going for general like attacks, just doing anything he can to buy time. It was really neat when Tonjinji, he just did like a finger pose and then did a slash anyway without using his sword. So I'm wondering if that has to do more of like a general technique, or if it's just like he can use his fingers as swords, because he doesn't have any like sharp claws, but he's like fingers are flexing us. So it's like I wonder if he's just able to essentially muscle in so much within speed and power that he's able to kind of, you know, hand blade it with his you know, just with his body. Because I'd like to believe that he's going to have a special sword, and he's got to have, these are his like, yeah, start out swords. I only pulled this sword out for a bigger opponent, somebody that's worthy. I think that would be really cool. But then while Karuda's in like close range, even though he's getting hurt, he just does an all-in lightning, just, you know, an all-in energy pour in, does a giant lightning blast. And it was cool that Tanjinchi received a little bit of damage. He's not like super worn out, but he does have some scrapes and it's just a little bit of battle damage. And granted, he is a demon, so he can heal, so it doesn't seem to be too much of an issue until he runs out of his energy enough to keep his regeneration and healing up. But then it was badass to see Mitagi do his was it because his, oh god, I have to double check. I'm pretty sure his last name is Winchester, I think. But his attack is Manchester. It's this giant charged up energy beam. It was cool to see it build up and then condense down. But Tanjinchi just sliced through it and then kind of aimed. Like he did some form of like, I wonder if he specifically like he just knew where it was, or if it had to do with this power of like I can just send a slash to a target. I have amazing eyesight, specifically like I can zoom in pretty much because of my whatever demon power, and he slices Mitagi's eye like right over his sniping eye. So I'm super curious as what's gonna happen there with him. Maybe he's gonna have to get an artificial eye instead of having to rely on a sight. He's gonna get some form of cool upgrade to where it's, you know, it gives him like, I don't know, X-ray vision. Maybe he'll do some extra homing things or buff some of his abilities. But Mako as well, like she's just trying to come in and join in. I like how they have two different, mostly like rush kick style fighters. Like you have one that goes for these like very fast immediate blitzes, and you have one that's just bouncing around trying to do all these like more power attacks. And he goes and just kind of you know, disarms, but you know, dislegs, technically disarms. It, like slaps off her arm pretty much. It's just like whatever. And then he sees like her gear come off, and he's like, I really liked this part because of how he talked, where he's like, you know, maybe if I cut off your other leg, you'll become a little bit stronger. He's just trying to figure out what can he do to make this match more exciting and more for him. And at this point, Karuda's just not really going to be able to do any form of like real responsiveness. And granted, he's low on power because he used up some of so much of it in the attack. It doesn't seem like it's not enough that he is like he's unable to use his power directly because he's still in his like lightning buff. But still, it's very clear that after seeing his full power, that Tanjinchi's just like, yeah, whatever. He just turns his sword and stabs him. So it tells you that when he was in and grabbed him and he was able to get that attack in the first place, it was because he went for this very risky surprise move. And after that, like he's just like, well, I've already seen your best, so I'm just kind of done with you, and just stabs him. And even at one point, he's like, before Mako showed up, he just was gonna behead Karuta and just kill him right there, and starts just laying waste into their team. Nihon and Jack Joe. I really like too that Nihon and Jack Joe are like adjacent enough to this team because of them working with Tsurugi, that this all, even though he's not like in their same group, it ties enough together so you could tell that this was going to be a Tsurugi moment, because this is effectively his squad plus Akari. Because again, it's Concordia, but because of the backstory that we have with Nihon and Jack Joe, that he is adjacent of the, like it all culminates together, because you had like his team, and then you have his newest, essentially his disciple, who in a lot of ways you look at like him and you look at like him and Kiyoshi, and in some ways it is similar to, you know, it's not the same thing as like Hitsugi and Kiyoshi, but with their powers and probably a little bit of just their determination and like their mentality, that it's would be similar enough to Sakaki, that you know it's like a flip of him going and training somebody with a you know, this was the guy that I worked with that was kind of my general rival, and now you're training somebody that was saved from him but has a similar power up, so you're, you know, you're just raising this new generation in like, again, you know, without jokes, like in the shadow of him, but more so in influence rather than like, you know, he's just, oh, he's just a Sakaki, like he's just a Sakaki kind of thematic tool kind of like inserted there, and it's not that kind of thing. And it was really nice too to see him just give his whole like big flex speech as he's ore farming. He's like, you know, there's a level that humans can't reach, a level of absurd power born out of only absurd violence, and that absurdity is me. And he just completely just standing there flexing on him, and gets ready to go for the finisher. And that's when Tsurugi comes in, blocks the attack, and he's like, all right, guys, stand aside. This is a job for a cross paladin. I got this. I'm so stoked to see this fight. One thing I want to mention, really fast, because I'm trying really hard not to ramble too much. My goal is to get some of my videos trimmed down a little bit, but I end up like seeing stuff that I really want to talk about. But in the color page, like the color page opening, you get Kiyoshi's tattoo, his chest tattoo, but it is colored in the middle, and we know from his, like, again, from literally looking at the same color page and what we see in others, when he uses his crest, they light up. So I'm wondering, and as well as we just saw with Kyoka, hers, like, she seems to primarily fight with the one on her chest, and I'm wondering it's still if the chest tattoos are different in application than the other ones. We still don't know what's up with Kiyoshi's like neck, like the one on his throat that looks like an eclipse. Maybe that's tied to the chest piece one, but we know that there is some form of thematic existence of it as well, because all the tattoos do something to a degree, and like his rings do stuff to a degree. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, what exactly is it going to do in his powers? I think maybe it would be some form of power up form, like it gives him a boost, but it would be like, yeah, it burns through really fast. I can't, you know, essentially it's my all-in move, and it's like Natsu having Dragon Force and Fairy Tail. It's not something you can go in and out of easily without like mastery, and it's like, until I get to this point, if I use this, I know that I'm going to pretty much be throwing all my cards on the table in this fight. Because Sakaki, and I'm guessing, not Sakaki, Tsurugi, I'm guessing we're going to be seeing that maybe in this fight. His is really cool. I love the really cool broadsword that's like pointing down into the sun. So his, maybe we'll see that in his fight. He's got the number 1 Demon Lord, whereas Sakaki's fighting the number 2. So he should have a bit of a harder fight, because it's clear still to me that Sakaki is a cut above him. Maybe not by a lot, but it's like you're fighting the weaker person, and you should be stronger. So Sakaki is going to be, Tsurugi is going to be having, I would assume, a much more vicious battle. And then as well, I mean, we're getting, you know, Kiyoshi go do something else for a little bit, having Hitsugi fight against Kurose for a bit. I think that'll be really badass. But yeah, I really am hoping to see a little bit of the chest tattoo crest versions, and see if there's any, like, if we get any like direct difference of explanation of what they do. Like if there's a difference of like application, like maybe the ones on your chest are more buffs, like kind of like what we got with Kyoka, and that's why Kyoka uses this because this is the primarily way that she does it. But the other people, it's like no, they use it more of like a trump card buff of like okay, well I'm going to use this. This is when I want to primarily get into the fight, and normally they use the crests maybe on the arms that do more elemental stuff. Who knows? There's still a lot about the abilities in the verse that I really am looking forward to finding out more of, and just a little bit about the powers because we don't have like a lot of exposition like moments, which I like that because it builds up a way of adding value onto once we get to those chapters because the power system doesn't seem complicated. It just seems like it's got a lot of options and it's got a lot of stuff that hasn't been directly given to us, so you have to read into it and then figure it out yourself to a degree. Like we understand the whole way that the demon powers work when you bind a demon and have them contracted to you, but we don't have the specifics and like, oh yeah, let me explain the requirements for crests. Oh, these are the different kinds. Oh, this is why most people don't kind of have two, because there's got to be a reason why two isn't common. It was specifically brought up that Kiyoshi was special for having two different ones. So I would assume there's a reason more so than just, oh yeah, it's hard to do. Maybe there is a level of power that you have to have just in doing so, or maybe it is just it's a skill thing. So it's like, oh, well, you're able to master two. Most people would rather just have two of the same thing. Again, it just depends on what your fighting style would be and capability and whatnot. But as it were, this chapter is really cool. I thought it was just a really good setup into the fight. I thought Kyoka's fight was really cool. Hers was more so a character introduction fight because we got her backstory and stuff. I don't think we need that with Tsurugi right now. I think it would be much better to get more of a really intense, just outward fight, and maybe we get a flashback. But I would personally I would rather get a character moment where it has to do more with his character taking a step forward rather than learning about his past right now. And if we get some form of flashback, I prefer it to get it from Tanjinshi because I think it would be more valuable right now. Unless the character doesn't die but he's defeated and we get him later, because Tsurugi would be one that we could easily get through like explanations of like delving into Sakaki as well. He's a character that's adjacent enough to another character that we could stable, push his backstory and stuff off a little bit, and we could get it into another one, and then maybe later it's like Tsurugi's next fight, maybe one where he's like, you think about this. If this is, I think this should be more of like a direct fight, like he's just having an intense battle, and we see something where with Kiyoshi, maybe Kiyoshi has to have a reason to not go and be in the Kurose fight. Like Azuroth comes in, maybe they fight for a little bit against Kurose, and then Azuroth comes in, Kiyoshi has to leave. You have Sakaki and because I that too. I think Sakaki versus Mokurojima would be much better to give us like some character backstory stuff, just because like apparently they have a history, and I would assume, well, and Yuta, but that's what I mean though, is like that type of fight where we get a little bit more, that flashback. Let's see exactly what led to here and like the meetings of these characters. Whereas like Tsurugi, I think we could get more of just a direct, intense battle, kind of like what we got with Azuroth and Kiyoshi, where it's just okay. We had the stuff with Nihon and Jackjo learning their powers. We got some backstory with Kyoka and the Gorgon fight. We had some funny stuff with like Hydrako and Kiyoshi and him going up to fight Kurose. And then we get to this where it's kind of like it's more so like Azuroth and Kiyoshi, where we'll work into some stuff, but the first maybe like chapter or two after this, it's just intense fight. We get a lot of cool action panels. We see more of Tsurugi's abilities. We get some stuff from Tanjinshi, especially with the demons. The fact that a lot of them seem to have like a lot of their more specific powers have to seemingly do with their race and what kind of demon they are. I really want to see him get fleshed out and really kind of used as much as possible before he ends up getting defeated. Unless it's like going to be one of those things where we get an identification of what kind of demon he is, and then we get another demon of the same species, so it'd be like seeing the same style but grow from a different character. Like I'm really hoping at some point we get some demon that is similar to where we get them at a much lower rank, but we see them getting stronger throughout the series, and it's like our POV for seeing from that side. But anyway, other than that, I mean, Kyoshi has really not disappointed me with any chapters in a long time. I don't think we've had anything that's been boring Because even on the chapters where not a lot happens, we get a lot of cool setup, and we usually will have just some fun moments. I like the. I still think about the nice hope, the hope that we can get Hydraco as like at least a semi-returning character. Like maybe if she's not going to be an ally, she's one of those ones that is kind of in between, where she doesn't. It's like having an anti-hero as a friend, where at some point she's just going to show up and be like, "I'm not really on her side, but I don't like these guys more." But we'll see. Other than that, I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about the chapter and whatnot, and what exactly is going on with the series. Like I said, I plan on doing. I'll end this out. I plan on doing like specific content for the series in the next couple chapters. Like I want to talk about like Cress, talk about the demon powers, start talking about some of the characters. I'm waiting for specifically a few things, like literally getting a little bit more seeing into specific abilities, like getting all of Sakaki's dice roll powers. Maybe seeing like one or two more Cress, getting a little bit of delving into Cress. Maybe after Sarugi, we will get some explanation on their powers. I think that'd be really cool too, if because you have this veterans, like high level veterans on both sides, is you could get some exposition of like powers and abilities in the verse. And these would be characters that logically would be talking about it and saying and analyzing each other in the middle of the fight. But other than that, talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.